accounting for labor. Now, accounting for labor deals with identifying the amount of labor costs to be charged or to be paid on jobs. We are going to start by looking at the remuneration methods. Now, remuneration methods, these are the different ways of paying workers. And there are 4 different ways of paying workers. The first one is fixed salaries. This is where people are paid a fixed payment, maybe per month or per week. It can be time-based. This is where the payment is based on the hours worked. So payment is based on hours worked. So the more someone works, the more he gets paid. Then piece rate payment. This is where payment is based on the units produced. And finally, bonus payment. So this is where payment is based on the time that is saved. So no, don't expect to be examined on fixed salaries. So we are going to start by looking at time-based payment. So time-based payment is where the payment is based on the hours that are worked. So here, the payment is based on the hours worked. For example, maybe someone is working in a factory and is supposed to work for 8 hours a day. So time per day is 8 hours and the payment is maybe $10 per hour. So someone is paid $10 per hour, and the normal working hours, they are 8 hours. Now it means in any one day, that person will be paid a maximum of $80, which is 8 hours times the 10. So total payment in any one day would be $80. Now you might find that in some days, someone is required to work for an extended period of time. So in that case, instead of only working 8 hours, someone is required to work for maybe 11 hours. And to encourage the person to work overtime, that person will be given a higher payment. So if the normal payment has been $10, if someone works for extra time, any hours beyond 8, the person might be paid maybe, for example, $12.5 per hour. So I'm putting it here. Overtime payment is $12.5 per hour. So on a certain day, if someone works for 11 hours, what would be the total payment? So if someone works for 11 hours, his total payment would be this. For the first 8 hours, they will be paid at the normal rate, which is $10 per hour. But for the extra 3 hours, they will be paid at a premium rate. They will be paid at $12.25 per hour. So it means the total payment is going to be 8 times 10. So that is 80, then plus 3 times 12.5. So the total payment is going to be $117.5. So this would be the total payment. Now take note of this, that this overtime payment, the 12.5, is divided into 2. It has the basic payment, which is 10, and it has the overtime payment, which we call the premium. So this 12.5, the total overtime payment, it has what we call the basic or the normal payment, and it has the premium. So what is the basic? The basic is 10 and the premium is 2.5. So what is a premium? Premium is just the extra payment above the normal payment, or we can call it the additional payment, or it can be called the incremental payment. So 2.5 is the increment. It is done to encourage people to work overtime. They are being paid $10 per hour, but if you work overtime for any extra hour, the payment is 12.5. Now there are different ways of giving you this 12.5. The first one is what we've looked at. The question can tell you overtime is paid at, they give you the actual amount 12.5. So that is one way. The second option could be this. They tell you that overtime is paid at 25% premium. Now remember what we've said, premium is just the increment. So if the normal payment has been $10, if you work overtime, we are adding you 25% of the normal payment. And 25% would be 2.5. So now the 2.5 is just the increment. It means the total overtime payment is 10 plus the 2.5. Or they can tell you that overtime is paid at a time and a half. Sorry, a time and a quarter. It is paid at a time and a quarter. So what is a time and a quarter? A time is 1, then a quarter is this. So if I divide this into 2, it would be 1 and a quarter. Now the normal payment is 10. So everything times 10. So this times 10, this times 10. So this would be 10 and this would be 2.5. So total payment is going to be 12.5. 2.5 is just the extra payment, or what we call the premium. So the meaning is this: if you work for 1 hour, overtime 1 hour, the payment is like you've worked for 1 hour and a quarter. You see, 1 hour is paid at $10. So if you work for 1 and a quarter, it means you'll be getting, if you work out this, it is 10 times 1 and a quarter divided by 1, which is 12.5. So you work for 1 hour, but the payment is like you've paid for 1 and a quarter. Now we can also present the payment graphically. The graph would be something like this. So for the first 10 hours, sorry, for the first 8 hours, the payment was at a rate of $10 per hour. But for the extra 3 hours, to make it 11, so this is hours and this is the cost or the payment. So for the extra 3 hours, the payment is slightly higher. So it is $12.5 per hour. So as you can see, the steepness. Next is piece rate payment. Now in piece rate payment, the payment is based on the units produced. i.e., if you want total payment, it would be the number of units times the payment per unit. But take note of this, that rejected units, rejected, or they can be damaged units, rejected or damaged units are not paid for. So rejected or damaged units don't qualify for payment. So we only pay for fully completed units. Now, just like in time-based payment, okay, for example, we have this, someone is producing units. So if you produce 1 unit to maybe 100 units, you might find that the payment is maybe $1 per unit. Now, just like in time-based payment, in order to encourage people to produce more units, we might pay them a higher rate payment when a certain number of units has been exceeded. For example, we can say that if you produce more than 100, so from 100 maybe up to 200 units, you see, before we are paying $1 per unit. So when you go beyond that, maybe we are paying $1.2 per unit. So you see there is an increment of $0.2 for every unit beyond 100. We can also add on and we say that from maybe 200 up to maybe 300 or 400 units, the payment is maybe $1.5 per unit. So you see still there is an increment if you go beyond 200 units. Now the question is this: on a certain day, someone produced maybe 500 units. So someone produced 500 units, but 50 units were rejected or damaged. So what would be the total payment for this person? Now the total payment is going to be this. First of all, it was 500, but 50 units were damaged. So the payment will only be for 450 units. Now the 450 units, it is divided into 3. For the first 100 units up to 100 units, the payment is $1 per unit. Then from 100 to 200, so what is in between? It is just 100 units in between. So from that to this, the payment is 1.2. Then if you go beyond, I'm changing this and I'm just putting 200 plus. When you go beyond 200, the payment is 1.5. So what is left? It is, okay, allow me to change this figure. Instead of 500, I want to make it maybe 400. So someone produced 400. Sorry about this. Someone produced 400. So when you subtract 50, you get 350. So total was 350. Now the 350 is divided into first 100, next 100. So what is left? We are left with 150. So for the 150 units, the payment is 1.5. So what would be the total payment? It is going to be, this is 100 plus 120, then plus 225. So meaning that total is going to be 445 if someone produces 400 units, 50 units being damaged. Now graphically, this would be something like this. For the first 100 units, the payment is $1. Then if you go beyond 100 but up to 200, the payment is $1.2 per unit. So this is up to 200 units. Then anything above that, the payment is 1.5. So you can see the steepness of the graph, but here we have units and here we have cost. So differentiate between these two graphs. The first one we did, this was hours, but now in this one it is units. So if you have units, this graph represents piece rate. But if you have hours, something like this, but here they are hours, this one will be representing the time based. We have a question here. You can first pause me and you try out. Okay, the question is exam technique. You start by reading the question. How much did the employee earn for that day? So they want how much was earned. Now the data given is this. An employee is paid on a piece work basis as follows. So from 1 to 500 units, that is what he gets. Then after the table, we have this on only the additional units qualify for higher rates. It is only the incremental rates that will be paid at a higher payment, but rejected units don't qualify for payment. Now on a certain day, an employee produced 1,200 units, but 32 were rejected. It means how many units are qualifying for payment. So it is 1,200 minus 32. So when you subtract, you get 1,168. It means we are going to pay for 1,168. Now this 1,168 is divided into 3. For the first 500 units, the payment is 0.5. Then what is the balance? It is 668. So you keep subtracting from this total. Then for the next 500 units above that, the payment is 0.75. Now so far the total is 1,000 units, sorry. So what is left? It is 168. So above 1,000 units, the payment is $1 per unit. So when we work out this is 250. Then this is 500 times 0.75. It gives 375. And finally, this is 168. So the total payment is going to be plus 250 plus 168. It is 793. So the correct answer is option C. So now we are going to look at guaranteed minimum wage. Now there are two minimum wages. There are two guaranteed minimum wage. We have a minimum plus and whichever is higher. Now we are going to start by looking at minimum plus. For example, the commission of a salesman. Now minimum plus is simple with, it is where someone is paid a fixed payment, but in addition is paid basing on the units produced or units sold. So we can look at a question. Now James is paid $1 per unit produced, but you see the wording, it is saying with, and this with means in addition to what is earning based on the units. In addition to what he earns based on the units, is also given a guarantee. There is a guaranteed minimum wage of $40 for a 40-hour week. So in a series of 4 weeks of the month, he produced the following units: 100, 120, 140, and 160. So they want you to calculate the amount, the total amount for the month. You see, the question has said he's paid $1 per unit produced, but with, and they want the total payment for the full month. So what would be the payment for the first week? So in week 1, he's going to earn, there is a guaranteed of 50 per week. So even in week 2, he's going to earn the 50. Even in week 3, he will be earning the 50, even in week 4, because they wanted the total payment for the full month. So every week it is a must, he must earn the $50. But with means, in addition to that, is also paid based on the units produced. So in week 1, he produced 100 units. So he has to get the 50, whether he produces units or he doesn't produce. It is a must, it is a fixed payment or fixed salary. So total payment for week 1 would be 50, which is the guaranteed. Then we add on the payment because of producing the units. So it is 100 times 1. Then in week 2, it is 120 units, but each unit is paid at $1. Week 3, it is 140 times 1. And in week 4, it is 160 times 1. So total here is, this is 50 plus 100, it is 150. Then this is 170. This is 190. And finally, this is 210. So the total payment is going to be $720 for the full week. Now, if they want you to represent this graphically, it would be something like this. So this is the guaranteed, but in addition to that, so this would be the 50. In addition to the 50, you're also paid based on the units produced. So the more the units, the more the payment. So 50 is a must. Then in addition to that, you're also paid based on the units. So it can be that graph, or it could be something like this. So this is a must, 50. Then when you start producing units, you get paid. So the first graph here, it can be you're given a payment of $50, maybe up to 100 units. Then when you go beyond 100 units, they start paying you a higher rate per unit. But the 50 is fixed up to 100 units. When you go beyond, they start paying you a higher payment per unit. The payment is now based on units. The more you produce, the more you get paid. Okay, we look at whichever is higher. Now, whichever is higher is simply like the minimum wage that countries normally set, that no employee should be paid below a certain amount. For example, we have this question we are trying out. So a company has 3 people who are paid based on units produced. Now the rate is 2.25, but up to 100 units. Then when you go beyond 100 units, the payment is $3 for any extra units above 100. But read this, there is a guaranteed minimum wage of $180 for each employee. So the company has a policy that no one leaves the company every week with less than 180. It is different from what we've just done. The other one was minimum with. It was with. It means someone earns, then in addition, he has to earn 180, then we add on. But this one is different. It says no one leaves the company with less than 180. So the question is asking us to calculate how much was paid in total for the full week. So there are 3 employees. We have A, B, and C. So here I'm putting payment based on the units. So based on the units, A is going to earn 96 times 2.25 because this is less than 100, and this gives us 216. Then for B is producing 122, so this is divided into 2. It is 100 at 2.25. Then the extra 22 units, they are paid at $3. So the total is 225 plus 66, we get 291. And finally for C, he has produced 76 units, but each unit is paid at 2.25, making a total of 171. Now what I've put there is payment based on the units produced, but the company has a policy that no one leaves the company with less than 180. So here I'm putting minimum wage. So every week someone should get a minimum of 180. No one lives with 180. So what would be the actual payment? So for A, we are picking out the higher. So the actual payment is the higher of the two. So for A is going to earn 216, for B 291, and finally for C is going to earn the higher, which is 180, because the policy is no one leaves the company with less than 180. So the total payment for all the 3 employees would be 687. So you should be able to differentiate between whichever is higher. And so we have these 2 questions to try out. Number 1, what will the workers' wage be if they produce 170 units? So that is the exam technique. You start by reading the question. Now a factory worker is paid on a piece rate basis. They are paid $1.5 per unit for the first 100 units. Then the rate increases to $2 per unit for all units produced in excess of 100. But there is a there is a guaranteed minimum wage of $250. So the question is, what is the employee paid? So this one is the higher of. They didn't say is paid a minimum with. The other one with is where we add. So this one is the whichever is higher is what would be paid. So the minimum is 250. Then what is the payment based on units? The person produced 170. So 170 is divided into 2. For the first 100, the payment is 1.5. Then for the next 70 units, because there are no rejected units, the payment is $2. So when we sum up this is 150 and this is 140, so the total is 290. So which one is the higher of the two? So the higher of the two would be 290, so the payment would be 290. So we try this second question. Exam technique, always start by reading the question. What should be earned by the employee during the week? They want how much should the employee earn during the week. So the question is saying an employee earns his wages by means of a piece rate system. So he's paid based on units produced. He earns $13 for every 100. So during a week he worked 36 hours and he produced 3,300 units. There is a guaranteed minimum rate per hour. that can be earned of $11. Then a further guaranteed minimum wage comes from the minimum wage legislation that dictates that the employees must be paid a minimum of $22,360 per annum. So how much is the employee paid? First one is payment based on the units. So how much is he paid based on the units? So for every 100 units, the person is earning $13. So if he produced 330 units, 3,300, how much is he paid? We cross multiply, it will be 13 times 330 divided by 100. So if we work out, we get 13 times 33, we get 429. So this is the payment based on units. It is the first payment. Now the second payment is the company has a policy that someone has to be paid $11 per hour worked. So during a week, he worked for 36 hours. So the company's payment would be 36 hours times 11. So we get 396. And finally, the last one is there is a further guaranteed. Okay, the government has a policy that no one earns less than this in a full year. Now this is per annum, but the question wanted per week. So in a week, someone produced these units. If it is hours, someone worked for those hours. So based on the government's wage, what is the payment per week? Now in a full year, you should know there are 52 weeks. So payment per week would be 22,360. That is for a full year divided by the 52 weeks. So if we divide, we get 22,360 by 52. We get 430. So what would be the payment? The higher of the 3, and the high of the 3 is 330. So the person will be paid $330. So the correct option is C. Bonus payment. Now bonus is going to be paid based on time saved. So this one is paid based on time saved. For example, assuming someone is producing units, so maybe one unit is supposed to take, so one unit takes maybe 2 hours. So if someone produces 10 units, it means the person is supposed to take 20 hours. So the expected time would be 2 times 10, which is 20 hours. So the 20 hours is what we call the expected time. But now you might find that someone has actually produced the 10 units, but he has actually used only maybe 15 hours to produce all the 10 units. It means he has saved 5 hours. So what is time saved? So in this question, time saved would be the 5 hours. And time saved is given by this. It is the expected time minus the actual time taken. Now expected time can also be called time allowed, or it can be called the standard time. And how do we calculate standard time? So standard time is calculated as it is the time per unit. It is the standard time per unit times the actual units. So this is how we calculate standard time. So in short, it is standard hours times the actual units. Okay, now how will the bonus be paid? So bonus is paid basing on the time saved, but it is paid at the basic rate or normal rate. And if they want you to calculate the total payment or gross payment, so the total payment or gross payment is going to be the payment basing on the hours worked, then plus the bonus payment. So this would give you the total payment. So now we can look at a question. Exam technique, never forget, you start by reading the question. So the question is, what is the bonus payable to employee X and hence the gross wages to the nearest dollar? So company operates a premium bonus system by which employees receive a bonus of 75% of the time saved compared with the standard time allowance at the normal hourly rate. So it means bonus is paid at 70% of the normal basic payment. Now details relating to employee X are shown below. They have told you the guy actually worked for 42 hours. The normal or standard payment is 10. He achieved an output, or he produced 400 units of a product. Then the standard time allowance per unit is 7 minutes. It means to produce 1 unit, it takes 7 minutes. So they want us to calculate bonus and the total payment. And we said, how do we calculate bonus? Bonus is based on time saved. And what is time saved? So time saved, we said it is the standard time minus the actual time taken. And how do we calculate standard time? It is standard hours per unit, which I'm calling S8, then times the actual units, then minus the actual hours. So according to the standard, each unit takes 7 minutes. So you see everything is in hours, so we convert the 7 minutes to hours. So it will be 7 out of 60. So that is the standard time per unit, but he actually produced 400 units. So this time was 400. Now this will give us the total time he should have taken, expected time. Then we subtract the actual hours taken, which were 42. So the time saved is going to be, we work out this. So when we work out this, we get, don't round off, it is 14 out of 3, or it is 4.6667, but don't round off, we are going to use 14 out of 3. Okay, so that is our time saved. But what is bonus? So bonus, we said it is paid basing on time saved times the basic rate. But in this question, the question has told you bonus is 75% of the time saved. Of means you multiply. So bonus is going to be 75% of the time saved. So time saved is 14 out of 3, then times the basic payment, which is 10. So if we work out this, we get we get 35. So bonus is $35. Now the second requirement is calculate the gross wages. So what would be the gross wages? Gross wages is the gross payment. So gross payment is going to be the payment for the hours worked. Then we also add on the bonus payment to get our total payment. So how many hours were actually worked? So the guy actually worked for 42 hours, but each hour is paid at $10. Then we need to add on the bonus payment, which is 35. So our total payment would be 420 plus 35. We get $455. So these are the two answers. Bonus is 35 and the gross payment is $455. So we have a second question, and the requirement is they want us to calculate the gross payment. And we said, how do we calculate gross? Gross payment is, it is pay for hours worked then plus the bonus payment. So how many hours were actually worked? So a normal working day is 6 hours. Basic rate is $4 per hour. Then the standard time allowed to produce a unit is 5 minutes. Premium bonus is payable at a basic rate of 40% of the time saved. So on a particular day, so what does that mean? The person actually worked normal 6 hours and he produced 120 units. So payment for hours worked is going to be, he worked for 6 hours, but each hour is paid at $4, then plus the bonus. And bonus is 40% of the time saved at the basic rate, at the normal payment. So this is going to be 40%. Now what is the time saved? It is standard time taken. What is the expected minus actual? So this is standard time minus the actual hours taken. So all this times the basic rate, which is now $4. So what is the standard time? So this is going to be 40%. And standard time, we said it is standard hours per unit times actual units. Standard time per unit is 5 minutes. So we change it to hours. So it will be 5 out of 60 times actual units produced. He produced 120 and he only took 6 hours. So this times 4. So our answer is going to be, we work out this. It is 40% times brackets. So it is 5 out of 60 times 120 minus 6 hours times 4. So it is giving us 32 over 5, which is 6.4. So bonus is 6.4. And this is 24 plus the 6.4. So the answer we get is 30.4. So our total payment is 30.4 and the correct answer is therefore A. So next question, they want us to calculate the total payment for the job. Okay. Now, an employee receives a bonus according to the reward scheme. Now, the employee's basic rate of payment is $6 per hour, and the time allowed for the job is 1 hour. So time allowed or expected time is 1 hour, but the employee completed the job in only 40 minutes. Then the one scheme is calculated as bonus is equal to time taken divided by time allowed times time rate times time saved. So what is total payment? They still want the gross payment. So gross payment, we said it is pay for hours worked then plus the bonus. So what is the payment for hours worked? He actually worked 40 minutes, so we change it to hours. So it is 40 out of 60, then times the payment per hour, which is $6, then plus the bonus. But the question has said bonus is calculated as time taken divided by the time allowed, then this times the time rate, then times the time saved. Okay, so it is going to be 40 out of 60 times 6, then plus, so what is time taken? It actually took 40 minutes, but in hours it is 40 out of 60 divided by time allowed. So time allowed is 1 hour, then times the time rate. Time rate is the payment per hour, which is 6, then plus, not plus, times, so times the time saved, and time saved is actual time taken, sorry, expected minus actual time taken. So the guy is expected to take 1 hour, but he actually took 40 minutes, so it is 40 out of 60. Now you can just put that in the calculator and you get your answer. So it is brackets fraction 40 over 60 times 6, close the bracket, plus fraction, then again fraction, so it is 40 out of 60 divided by 1, then times 6 times bracket times bracket, which is 1 minus 40 out of 60. So the answer is 5.33. So our correct answer is going to be D. Next question, they want us to calculate gross wages for the employee based on a time rate of $6.5 per hour plus the productivity bonus based on time taken divided by time allowed times time saved times time rate. Now I think you can see that you can't cram the calculation of bonus. All you need is how to calculate time saved. The rest, it is the question to guide you. So we try out. They want gross wages, and gross payment is always, it is payment for hours worked then plus the bonus payment. So how many hours we are actually worked? So we read the question. KL currently pays its direct workers on a time basis at a rate of 6.5 per hour. So in an effort to improve productivity, the company is introducing a bonus based on time taken divided by time allowed times time saved times time rate. Now the standard time allowed for a worker in the assembly department to perform this particular operation, it is agreed to be 37.5 minutes. So to produce an operation or a unit, it takes 37.5 minutes. That is the standard time. So in the first week of the scheme, of the scheme is operation. A certain employee worked for a total of 44 hours and he produced 90 for operations. So they want us to calculate the total payment for that employee. So payment for hours worked is going to be, the guy worked for 44 hours, but each hour is paid at 6.5. Then plus bonus, but in this question, bonus is calculated as time taken divided by time allowed times the time saved, then times the time rate per hour, what is paid per hour. So it will be hour 44 times 6.5, then plus, so what is the actual time taken? He actually used 44 hours divided by time allowed. Time allowed is the same as standard time, and we said, how do we calculate standard time? It is standard time per unit times actual units. So the standard time per unit is 37.5, but you see the payment is in hours, so we convert to hours times the actual units. He actually produced 94 operations. So this would be the time taken divided by time allowed, then times time saved. So what is time saved? It is expected time minus the actual time taken. And how do we get expected? Expected is standard time times actual units. So it is the 37.5 divided by 60 times 94. So that is what he should have taken, but he actually took 44 hours, then times the time rate, that payment, which is 6.5. So you see, I'm just doing copy paste. So the total payment would be, we work out this, so it is 44 times 6.5 plus bracket fraction 44 divided by fraction again, it is 37.5 divided by 60 times 94, then we close the bracket, then times bracket fraction 37.5 divided by 60 times 94 minus 44, we close the bracket, times, we open the bracket, times 6.5, close the bracket. So the answer is 7.80. So to two decimal places, it is this. So the correct answer is B. So next we can look at the labor ratios. Now there are 4 labor ratios. We have labor turnover, we have labor capacity ratio, okay, efficiency ratio, we have labor capacity ratio, and finally we have the labor production volume ratio, or some books call it activity ratio. Now we are going to start by looking at the labor turnover ratio. So the first one is going to be labor turnover ratio. Now labor turnover ratio, it measures the rate at which employees are leaving the company. So the first one is labor turnover. And this ratio measures the rate at which employees are leaving the company. Okay. It is given by this formula here. Labor turnover is number number of replacements divided by the average number of employees in the company. But what is average? But average number of employees is given by employees at the start plus employees at the end divided by 2. But still, how do we get employees at the end? So, but also employees at the end. So how do we get people at the end of the year? It is, don't cram, just understand. So it is people at the start, then plus what increases minus what reduces. So to get employees at the end, the formula is going to be employees at the start of the year plus what increases when you replace people. So replacements increase. Now what reduces when people leave the company minus the number of people who have left. So we are trying out a question. Exam techniques start by reading the question. They want you to calculate labor turnover ratio. And we said labor turnover is number of replacements divided by average. But what is average? It is people at the start plus employees at the end divided by 2. So this one times 100%. So how many people were replaced? It is what we are looking for. So on 1st January, at the start of the year, a company had those employees. So it means that is the number at the start. We copy and paste. So at the start, it is 5250, then plus people at the end divided by 2. So due to expansion, the number of employees increased to this. So at the end, we have 5680. So you see, we are just interpreting. Then during the year, 360 people left, staff left the company and they were replaced. So how many people were replaced? We just want the replacements. They were 360. So this times 100. And if we work out, we get, so it is fraction 360 divided by bracket fraction 5250 plus 5680 divided by 2, close the bracket, times 100. So the answer we get is 6.5. 6.59%. So the correct answer would be B, which is 6.66. So next, they want us to calculate labor turnover. And labor turnover is replacements divided by average. But what is average? It is people at the start plus employees at the end divided by 2. So this times 100. So we just copy and paste. A company had 5,000 staff at the beginning. So it means people at the start were 5. So plus people at the end, we don't know, divide by 2. Okay, during the year, there was a major restructuring of the company and 1,200 staff were made redundant. So, and 800 people left the company. Okay, then to work for another company who is a competitor, so 800 new staff joined. So our replacement is 800, this that joined. So you see in the question, clearly we don't have people at the end. And we said, how do we calculate people at the end? It is employees at the start plus what increases. Now what increases is when people join the company. So it is 800. So 800 would be added because they joined. Now what reduces? when people leave the company. So 800 people left the company and 1,200 people were made redundant. Now people made redundant also left the company. You know how bosses fire, they just tell you, you go back home, we shall call you maybe when we need you. So they make you redundant, and what happens is they never call you. So people at the start were 5,000. So if we work out, people at the end would be 5 minus this, so we get 38. So it means at the end we have 3,800 employees. So this times 100. So it is fraction 800 divided by bracket fraction 5,000 times no plus 3,800 divided by 2 times 100. So the answer is 18.18% So you can clearly see that in this question, the trick was they didn't give you people at the end of the year. And this is how we calculate people at the end. So it is at the start, then plus whatever increases, whatever reduces will be subtracted. Next question is this. They still want us to calculate labor turnover. And labor turnover, it is replacements divided by people at the start plus people at the end divided by 2 times 100. So we just copy and paste. The company had those people at the start, so it means people at the start were 80, so plus people at the end divided by 2. Then at the start of the, okay, and 60 people at the end, so at the end we have 60. Now you see what is left, it is replacements, because this is times 100. So during the year, a total of 45 people left the company. Now in this question, the trick is they have not given you replacements. So how do we calculate replacements? We use our formula, employees at the end is equal to people at the start plus whatever increases minus what reduces. So how many people do we have at the end? There were 60 people at the end, but at the start we had a total of 80 employees. Then plus replacements would increase, so we add replacements, but a total of 45 left the company. So what? 45 it reduces, so we subtract. And if we work out replacements, which is R, would be, so use your calculator, 60 shift alpha equals 80 plus alpha x minus 45. You do shift solve, then you place equal signs. So replacements were 25. So here we put 25. And if we work out this, the answer we get is, so it is fraction 2 divided by bracket 8 fraction 80 plus 60 divided by 2, then times 100. So it is 2.875. Okay. Sorry, the upper one is not 2, it is 25. So we change this one to 25. And if we work out, we get 37.7%. So the correct answer is B. So we can look at the remaining 3 ratios. And the first one is labor efficiency ratio. So labor efficiency is given by this formula. It is the standard hours divided by the actual hours times 100. Then we have labor capacity. So labor capacity ratio is given by actual hours divided by the budgeted hours times 100. And finally, the activity ratio, or what we call the production volume ratio. And production volume ratio is given by the standard hours divided by the budgeted hours times 100. Now be careful that standard hours are calculated as standard time per unit then times actual units. So I abbreviate it as SH times actual units. Now, being a student, I know how hard it is to remember formulas. So I've eased your life by forming this. So these ratios can be remembered using this word here. So the word is sub. Now this word is just written downwards. You write it downwards. So it is S, A, B. And what does it mean? You know the alphabet. The alphabet is ABC. So A over B is giving us capacity ratio. Then after that you go to D, then E. So this upper one is efficiency ratio. And finally, if you want the last one, just remove what is in the middle. That is the shortcut. So when you remove the A's, it means production volume is going to be standard over budgeted. So you just add H throughout. So this is standard hours, actual hours, hours, and hours. But be careful with the last one. Production volume is given as capacity ratio times the efficiency ratio. So you can get a question on this. So capacity is actual hours divided by budgeted hours, and efficiency is standard hours divided by the actual hours. So you can clearly see that the actual hours are cancelling out, and we end up with standard hours over budgeted hours. So this is production volume ratio or activity ratio. So be careful about the standard. It is not just SH, it is standard hours for actual units. So I'm putting this A to help you remember that when you want standard actual hours, it is the same as standard time per unit times actual units. So it is what you will be putting up here and here. So we can look at a question and they want us to calculate all the three ratios. So they have said we should calculate efficiency ratio, we should calculate capacity ratio, and we should calculate the production volume ratio. Remember what I've just told you, it is the word sub, but it is written downwards. So it is alphabet AB is equal to capacity, DE is equal to efficiency. So efficiency is standard over actual, capacity is actual over budgeted, and production volume, you remove what is in between. So it is standard over budgeted. Now you just add H throughout. Actual hours, budgeted hours, standard hours, budgeted hours. So everything times 100%. So we read the question. So a company has budgeted to produce 15,000 units, and the standard time per unit is 6 hours. So the company has actually produced 16,500 units in only 95,700 hours. So what would be the efficiency ratio? efficiency is standard. And what is standard? We said standard is standard hours for actual units. So I told you, you put A here to help you remember, divide by actual hours. So what is the standard? Standard time per unit is 6, but we actually produced 16,500. So divide by actual hours, which were, so actual was 9,500. So I'm picking out from the question, actual hours were 9,500. So if you want standard, it is 6 times 16,500, 6 times 16,500. So it should have been 99. Then if you want budgeted hours, if budgeted hours are not given, it is standard time per unit times actual units. So it is 6 times, not actual, it is budgeted units. So 6 times 15, which gives us 90. So this is times 100. So if we work out, it would be 99 divided by 9,500. So times 100. So we get 103.4%. Capacity ratio, it is actual hours, which is 9,500 divided by budgeted, which is 90, times 100. So the answer we get is 9,500 divided by 90 times 100. We get 106.3%. And finally, for production volume, it is standard. And standard we've worked out, it is 99 divided by budgeted, which is 90, times 100. So if we work out, we get 99 divided by 90 times 100, we get 110%. So those are the answers. Now be careful, you can get a section question on interpretation of the ratios. What is the meaning? Okay. Now I'm picking out one. Maybe I've picked out capacity. So we've said capacity ratio is actual hours divided by budgeted hours. Now what if actual hours, it is 1 hour and the budget is, okay, let me use 10. What if actual is 10? Okay, let me use 5. What if actual hours were 5 and budgeted hours were 5? So it means in this case, the ratio would be 100%. Now I'm changing. What if actual hours were 4 and the budget is 5? Now if you work out this, the answer you get is 80%. And finally, what if actual was 5 and the budget is 4? Now if you work out this, you will be getting 125%. Now what is the interpretation? Now for capacity ratio, if the ratio is 100%, it means, so if the ratio is 100%, if capacity, a minute, okay, so if capacity ratio is 100%, it means that actual hours are equal to budgeted hours. Next, if capacity ratio is greater than 100%, okay, we first do less than. So if capacity ratio is less than 100%, what does it mean? It means that the actual hours are less than budgeted hours, i.e. 4 is less than 5. And finally, if capacity ratio is greater than 100%, what does it mean? So how do you get a number greater than 100% when the denominator is more than the numerator? When the numerator is more than the down one. So it means actual is greater than the budgeted hours. So don't cram this part, just understand it. Because they can ask you efficiency or it can be production volume. Okay, so now this is what I mean. Question 1, what would have caused this? So direct labor capacity was 104%. So what is capacity ratio? Capacity is actual divided by budgeted. So how do we get a ratio greater than 100 when actual hours are more than budgeted? So which options? You see the first one is actual hours being greater than budgeted. So this one is clearly the answer. It can't be B. Then for C and D, standard hours for actual output being greater than budgeted hours. So this would be correct if they had said it is efficiency. So if it was efficiency, this would be the answer. Because efficiency is standard hours divided by actual hours. So when standard hours are more than actual, it means the ratio would be greater than 100% when the upper one is more than the lower one. So you look at the ratio, it is capacity, and capacity compares actual and budgeted. It is not standard and budgeted. So actually, this last one shouldn't be capacity. It should be, no, it shouldn't be efficiency. It should be production volume. Because we are not comparing actual, we are comparing standard with budgeted. And if the formula for production volume is standard hours divided by budgeted. So when standard is greater than budgeted, it means the ratio is greater than 100. So this one would have been for production volume. Then the next one. So what could have caused the efficiency to be 98%? So efficiency is simply standard hours divided by actual hours. So actual hours worked being greater than budgeted, being great when they exceed standard. So you see when actual is more than standard, the ratio would be less than 100. When the upper figure is less, it is less. Then budgeted hours, no, this can't be the answer because efficiency does not have budgeted in the formula. Then the third one, standard time for actual output is more than actual. So you see it is standard being more than actual. And when standard is more than actual, the ratio would be greater than 100%. Then the last one, actual hours worked exceed budgeted. So when actual is more than budgeted, this one is capacity. So our correct answer is going to be A. You see when actual is more than standard, when actual is more than standard, what happens? It means the ratio would be less than 100%. So the correct answer is A. When actual hours exceed standard. It is like you have 80 divided by 100. The answer would be 80%. But if you reverse and you say 100 divided by 80, the answer is 125%. So we can try out some more questions on the labor ratios. Now the first one is, which of the following is correct? Which of the following is the correct labor capacity and labor efficiency ratio? So they want us to calculate capacity ratio and efficiency ratio. And capacity is A over B and efficiency is standard over actual. So we just copy and paste. So they have told us actual output was this in these hours. So actual hours were this, divided by budgeted hours. So budgeted hours were 210. So this times 100 we get. So it is 220 divided by 210 times 100. We get 104.7%, 0.76%. So the answer can either be C or it can be D. So now we calculate the efficiency ratio, and the efficiency standard divided by actual. So we already have actual, it is 220 hours, but how do we calculate standard? Standard is, it is standard time per unit times actual units. So standard time per unit is 20 minutes, but you see everything is in hours. So it would be 20 out of 60 times actual units. So they actually produce 600 units. And if we work out that, we get 20 divided by 60 times 600. So we get 200. So this times 100, we get, so it is 200 divided by 220 times 100. And the answer we get is 90.91%. So the correct answer is C. We do the next question. So the following data relates to the next two questions. They have given us the data. They want us to calculate the capacity ratio as a percentage to one decimal place. And capacity is, so you see the important thing is formulas. So capacity is actual hours divided by budgeted. Okay. Now we read the question. Budgeted and actual production for the year just ended was as follows. So they are producing 4 products, P, Q, R, and S. So these are the units. These are the budgeted units. They are the planned units. And this is the standard time in total to produce those units. But they actually produced these units. Now they have told us total machine hours amounted to 14,500. So actual hours are given. It is 14,500. So we need to find the total budgeted hours. And total budgeted hours would be the total of this. So it is 15 plus 4,000 plus 35 plus 45. And the total is 13,500. So divide by 13,500, then times 100. So the answer we get is 14,500 divided by 13,500 times 100. We get 107.4. So it means our correct answer is going to be D. We do the next one. They want us to calculate efficiency, but efficiency is standard hours for actual units divided by the actual hours. So we have the total actual hours. It is 14,500. So we need to get standard actual hours. But what is this? We said this one means standard time per unit times actual units. Now the trick is they have not given you the standard time per unit. But what is standard time per unit? It is the budgeted time per unit. And how do we get budgeted? You see it is time or hours per unit. So how do we get the time per unit? It will be budgeted hours divided by budgeted units. So we are going to do 15 divided by 75. So when we divide that, we get the time per unit of producing product P. And if we work out this, we get 0.2 hours. So I'm putting here SH, standard time per unit, is 0.2. The next one would be 4,000. You see it is hours per unit divided by the 10,000. It means each unit is taking 0.4. The next one is 35 divided by 7, which is a half, 0.5. And the last one is 45 divided by 3,000. We get 1.5. So what I've put there is the standard time per unit. So how do we calculate the total hours? So total hours would be total standard hours. It is going to be the standard time per unit times the actual units. So this is going to be in total 0.2 times we actually produced 6,000 units. So that is for P. Then for Q it is 0.4 times 75. Next it is 0.5 times 8,000. Then the last one is 1.5 times 2,500. So the total we get is 0.2 times 6,000 plus 0.4 times 75 plus 0.5 times 8,000 plus 1.5 times 2,500. So we get 11950. So this is 11950. So this times 100. So it is 11950 divided by 14,500 times 100. So the answer we get is 82.4137. So the correct answer would be so for number 2, the correct answer is A. Next question, they want us to calculate the efficiency ratio, and the efficiency ratio is it is standard hours, but it is standard actual hours divided by the actual hours. So we work out. Now you see nothing is given. They have just given us budgeted hours. They have not given us actual, they have not given us the time per unit or standard hours. But when we look at what is given, capacity is this. But what is capacity? Capacity ratio is some putting, but capacity is actual hours divided by budgeted. So 104.8% is going to be actual hours, which we don't know, divided by budgeted, which is 210. And when we work out, the actual hours would be, so use your calculator to work out. So it is 104.8 50% is equal to fraction alpha x divided by 210, shift solve, and equals. So when you place equals, you get 220.08. So it is roughly 220. So it means now we have actual hours. It is 220. Now you see we don't have standard hours, but we have production volume. And what is production volume? Production volume is standard hours for actual units divided by the budgeted hours. So standard is, production volume is 95.2% is equal to standard hours divided by budgeted, and budgeted is 220.08. So we work out standard. So this means that standard hours would be, we work out, so 95.2 shift percent is equal to fraction alpha x divided by 220.08. Then you do shift solve, then equals. So it is 209.52 if it is rounded. So we put 209.52 times 100, and our answer is, so it is 209.52 divided by 220.08 times 100. So the answer we get is a minute. Sorry, there is a problem on the calculation of the production volume. So this one, divide by budgeted, not actual. So what were the budgeted hours? Budgeted is 210. So we divide by 210. So it is 95.2 shift percent alpha equals alpha x divided by 210 shift solve. So we get 199. So this one, the standard is 199.2. So this is 199.92. So we work out 199.92 divided by 220.08 times 100. So the answer we get is 90.83. So this is the answer. Now if you don't round, if you round off, this one is the same as 220, no 200 divided by the 220 times 100. And if you do that, 200 divided by 220 times 100, the answer you get is 90.91. So this one is the answer, but because of the rounding, if you use 200 divided by 220, you get this. Okay, we do the next question. They want us to find the actual units produced. Okay, they have given us the data. Capacity is this. So when you look at the question, now which formula has actual units? Now there are two formulas that have actual units. Number one is efficiency ratio, because efficiency is standard actual hours divided by actual hours, and this is standard time per unit times actual units divided by the actual hours. And the other one that has actual units is the production volume ratio, which is standard hours divided by budgeted hours. So this is standard time per unit times actual units divided by the budgeted units. Okay, so now they want actual units. This is what they want. So we don't know which formula that we should be using. So what do? We base on the data to find out which one we should use. You see, they have given us actual hours. So this is 180. So it means we need to look for standard. Okay, we try out and we see which ratio we are going to use. So they have told us capacity is, and the formula for capacity is a minute. So capacity, the formula is actual hours divided by budgeted. So what is given? Actual hours are given. So it means, this means that 97.3% is equal to, what were the actual hours? 180 divided by budgeted hours. So this one means budgeted hours would be, so 97.3% is equal to fraction 180 divided by alpha x shift solve. So budgeted is 184. Okay, if it is rounded, it would be 185. Now, since they have given us production volume, then we can use the second formula to find the actual units. Okay, so we have budgeted hours, which is 185, and we have the production volume ratio, which is 103.8. It means standard actual, and we have the standard hours, which were 16 minutes. So we need to convert 16 minutes to hours. So this is 16 out of 60. Now that is the time per unit, then times your actual units. So it means that actual units would be, we work out, so it is fraction, again fraction, so it is 16 divided by 60 times alpha x divided by 185, alpha equals 103.8, so percent, shift percent, so shift solve, it means actual units were 720.1125. So if it is rounded, it will be 720 units. So these were the actual units. I think that is enough practice for the ratios. We are now going to move on to the last area. So we look at direct and indirect labor costs. So what is a direct labor cost? So direct labor cost is a cost that can be linked. So direct can be linked to one unit of a product. Then the opposite is indirect cost. And indirect cost, the cost can't be linked. The cost can't be linked. It can't be linked to one unit of a product. Okay. Now we need to find out what is the total direct labor cost and what is the total indirect labor cost. So I'm giving you formulas. If they ask you for total direct labor cost, so direct labor cost would be all productive hours but at the normal rate, or what we call the basic rate. Then we add on overtime premium, but there is a condition: you add overtime premium if requested by a customer. Now what we mean is this: maybe people are producing units and at the end of the day a customer comes in and he has brought in some order, so he would want people to work on that order. So what the manager of the company will say would be, these guys we are supposed to go back home, so if they are to work on your units, then you have to pay them. So you see the payment is linked to the units. So if overtime is requested, then the premium becomes a direct cost. Then we add on direct payment, but it is for indirect workers. Now this is not so common, but the logic is this: maybe the company is busy, we are producing units, so what we may do, we may decide and we call indirect workers, maybe cleaners, to come and help us with the production of the units. So you see the payment we are paying them is directly linked to the production of the units, but their nature is they are indirect workers because their duty is to clean the company, and cleaning the company is not linked to the production of the units. But when we call them to do the actual production, it means we are paying them because of the production. So it means it becomes a direct cost. Then what would be the total of indirect? So total indirect cost is going to be, we are doing opposites. So instead of productive hours, it is going to be idle time or idle time hours, but still at the basic rate. Then plus overtime premium if it is not requested by a customer. Now, for example, you might find that workers are just working overtime because they are generally busy, so they have to finish up some orders. So in this case, the payment would be indirect. So it is only direct if the time is requested by a customer. Then plus the bonus payment. So these are the common ones. Other examples would include insurance payments for the employees. They would include maybe sick leave or sick payment. Someone is sick, but we are paying them. Okay, I think we can look at a question on this. We try out a question. Now, exam technique, you start by reading the question. They want us to calculate the total amount to be paid to Jim during the first week of March. So Jim is a machine operative in a production cost center and works a basic week of 35 hours. So he's supposed to work for 35 hours. The basic payment is $10 per hour. Then all overtime is paid at a 25% premium. Premium, we said it is the increment. Then during the first week of March, he worked for 44 hours. You see now, he's supposed to work for 35, but the guy has worked for 44 hours. So it means overtime hours were 9 hours. Now overtime is worked due to the following reasons. The first one is late delivery of materials. So the guy was busy in the factory waiting for materials to be delivered. So that is idle time. Next one, it is machine breakdown. So power went off or the machine had broken down. It means this person was not actively producing units for 3 hours. Then the last one, why we worked overtime. The question I said to complete the manufacture of items to meet the delivery date brought forward by a customer. So now these 4 hours, it is time that was requested by a customer. That time was requested by a customer. Okay. Now we start. They want us to calculate total payment. Now to get the total payment, we don't need this data that is in the table. So total payment is the guy worked for 44 hours. So these 44 hours are divided into 2. We have 35 and we have the extra 9 hours. So for the 35 hours, he's paid the normal rate of 10, but for the overtime, he's paid at a premium of 25%. So what would be that overtime payment? So normal payment is $10, but if you work overtime, we add you 25% of that 10. So we add you 25% of that 10. So the total would be 12.5. So overtime premium is paid, overtime is paid at 12.5. And if you work out, the total would be, so this is what would be the total payment, 35 hours times 10, then plus 9 times 12.5. So the answer is 462.5. Next, they want us to calculate how much of Jimmy's total payment is direct. And I told you what is direct. Direct payment is all productive hours but at the basic rate, then plus the overtime premium if requested, then finally plus the rare one direct pay for indirect workers. So it is direct payment for indirect workers. Now if we look at the data, how much of the total time were the productive hours? So you see the guy worked for a total of 44 hours, but how many hours were actually productive? You see, these 5 hours, the idle time, they were not productive hours because he was waiting for late delivery. Next, the machine had broken down. So it means the active hours were only 39. So this is going to be all productive hours. There were 39, but each hour is paid at $10. Then plus overtime premium if it is requested by a customer. So how much of the overtime was requested by a customer? So total overtime hours, there were 9 in total, but only 4 hours were requested. It means the 5 hours were not requested. So direct is what is requested. So it is 4 hours. Now I'm changing the color. 4 hours times, this is normally where the problem would be. It is not total payment of overtime. So don't multiply by your 12.25. It is only the premium. So it is 4 times 12, not 12, 4 times only 2.5. Not 12.5. You only multiply by the premium 2.5. So we don't have direct payment for indirect workers. It means our total direct payment is going to be 390 plus 10, which is 400. So finally, read this. So how much of the total payment was indirect? And we said what is indirect? So total of indirect is idle time at the basic rate, then plus overtime premium still, but this time if it is not requested, and finally we add on the bonus. So what was the total idle time? So idle time is the time when someone is not working. So it is 2 plus 3. Total idle time, there were 5 hours, but at basic rate, normal rate is 10, then plus overtime premium not requested. So total overtime were 9 hours, but 5 hours were not requested. So out of the 9, 5 hours were not requested. So it is 5, but still it will be 5 times only the premium. And premium is the increment, so times 2.5. We don't have bonus. So when we work out this, we get 62.5. So you can clearly see that when you add up total payment, you get direct and indirect. So total was 62.5. So this is divided into 462.5. 400 is direct, but this is indirect. We are paying people, but they are not working. Or the payment can't be linked to the production. So next we can look at this question. They want us to calculate the total direct and the indirect labor cost. So they have said a direct labor employee works a standard of 40 hours and is paid $5 per week. Overtime is paid at a time and a half. Last week he was paid for 45 hours, including 3 hours during which he was idle due to power shortage in the factory. He was also given a bonus of $20. So how much is the direct? We said total direct is all productive hours at the basic rate, then plus overtime premium. It is only the premium or the increment, but there is a condition if it is requested. Then the last, if it is requested by a customer. The last one is not so common. So how many hours were productive? He worked for a total of 45, but 3 hours were idle time. So active hours were 42, but each hour is paid at, so it is all productive at basic rate. Now the basic rate is $5. It means the total direct would be, you see in the question we don't have overtime premium or customer requesting for overtime. So it is 45 minus 3, 42 times 5, we get 210. So this would be the direct. Then how much is indirect? So indirect labor cost is idle time, but it is at the basic rate, then plus overtime premium not requested, then plus the bonus. So how much is the idle time? Idle time were 3 hours, but it is at the basic rate, which is 5, then plus overtime premium. So the person is supposed to work for 40 hours, but he actually worked for 45 hours, meaning 5 hours were overtime. So these 5 hours were overtime, but it is the premium. So how much? Because now since this overtime is not requested by a customer, then it is an indirect cost, but it is only the premium, so it is 5 times. So how much is the premium? You see normal payment is at $5, but if someone works overtime, we also add on, is paid at a time and a half. So let me explain to you this. So what is a time and a half? I say the time and a half is divided into 2. We have 1 and a half. So everything times basic rate of 5, we get 5 and we get 2.5. So 2.5 is the increment, or what we call the premium. So it will be 5 hours times the 2.5, then plus the bonus of 20, giving us a total of, so 3 times 5 plus 5 times 2.5 plus 20, the total is 47.5. So this is the total indirect, and this is the total direct. So we look at the last question. Now we should have stopped here, but we have to do this last question. You know, some names remind us of some people. So we do this question. I should actually do it in a red pen. So don't overthink, but it could be what you're thinking. Okay. Now the question is, Marcia is paid per hour. She gets paid $7.5 as the basic payment. Then overtime is paid at a premium of 2.5 for any hours worked beyond 40 hours. Then she's producing units, and each unit takes 30 minutes to produce, but she's also paid a bonus of 50% of the time saved of her standard hourly rate. Then idle time is not included in the calculation of the actual time taken. Last week, Mercy was at work for 54 hours, though 4 hours of these were lost due to machine breakdown. She produced 124 units that week. So propagators, these are the units. She produced 124 units that week. Calculate her total wages. So they want total payment and total payment would be based on the total hours worked. So she worked a total of 54 hours. So all the 54 hours would be paid for. So we start. Okay. Now they want us to calculate total payment, and we say total payment would be, it is payment for all the hours then plus the bonus. So how many hours were actually worked? She worked for a total of 54 hours. Though some were idle time, but they will also be paid for. So out of the 54, she's supposed to work for 40 hours, meaning the 14 hours were overtime. Okay, so total payment would be payment for 40 hours times basic rate, which is 7.5. Then for the extra 14 hours, the payment is 7.5 plus 2.5, which is, so these ones will be paid at 10. And 10 is 7.5 plus 2.5. So 10, because when you work overtime, they add you, premium is an addition, then plus the bonus. So we need to work out how much is the bonus. Now how do we get bonus? Bonus, we said it is based on time saved. Okay. Now you see each unit takes 30 minutes. So to produce 1 unit, she's supposed to take 0.5 hours. So if she produced 124 units, then she should have taken 124 times 0.5. And when we work out, we get 0.5 times 124, we get 62 hours. So she should have taken 62 hours, but she actually took how many hours? Now she didn't take 54 hours because 4 hours were idle time. She actually took 50. So active working was for 50 hours. It means how much is the bonus? So bonus would be time saved. So she's supposed to have taken 62 hours minus the 50 hours. So this is time saved. But when we read the question, how is the bonus paid? It is paid at 50% of the basic rate, and the basic rate is 7.5. So it is this times 7.5. If we work out, we get 40 times 7.5 plus 140. So this is 440. Then plus, so how much is the bonus? So it is 50% of the 62 minus 50 times 7.5. So bonus only is 45. So when we sum up this, we get 485. So that is the total payment. Number 2, how much is direct? So to get direct, we said direct is all productive hours at basic, then plus overtime, premium, it is only the premium if requested. So when we look at the question, there was no time that was requested. So how many hours we are actually productive? So active hours we are only 50 hours. So 50 times basic rate, which is 7.5. And if we work out, we get 50 times 7.5. It is 375. And lastly, how much is the indirect? So indirect is idle time, but it is idle time at the basic rate, then plus overtime, increment, premium that is not requested. then plus the bonus. So how much is the idle time? There were 4 hours, but at basic rate of 7.5. Then finally plus overtime premium. So how much was the overtime? Total overtime was 14 hours and the premium is 2.5. Then plus, so plus the bonus, and the bonus we calculated it as 45. So when we sum up this, we get 110. So total direct is this, and total indirect is 110. So be careful, the tricky part is calculation of the bonus. And we said bonus is calculated on time saved. And what is time saved? Time saved is, so I'm just repeating for you, time saved is expected minus actual. So the person actively worked for 50 hours, but what was the expected? How do we get expected? It is standard time per unit times actual units. So standard is 0.5 and she actually produced 124. So she's supposed to have taken 62, but she only took 50, meaning time saved was 12 hours. But each hour is paid, bonus is 50%. So it is 50% of time saved times the basic rate. And if you work out, you get the 45. So we stop there on the topic for today, which has been accounting for labor.